Toxic people drain your energy. They suck the life out of you with their negativity and manipulation. How do you deal with them? A simple answer is to cut them off. But is it that simple? Well, not always. Sometimes it's clear-cut, especially for the extreme cases. It's better that you run away from them as quickly as possible. But what about when the toxic person is your boss, your best friend, or even your spouse? Tough choices, right? You may like your job, but the people in the office are put off. It can even be more difficult when the toxic person are your loved ones. It could be your husband, your wife, your children, or your parents. They are annoying, but you can't bring yourself to walk away from them. As far as how to deal with toxic people is concerned, I find these are situations to be the real challenges. What do you think? Let me know by putting a comment below. Now, in this video, I would like to share with you a very profound wisdom that can serve as a powerful guide to overcome these problems. It is what the ancient sage Lao Tzu called to be his 3 treasures. But to put the philosophy in context, let me begin with some real-life examples. The first example is a dilemma that I faced in my early years. I held an interesting job that I enjoyed doing a lot, but some of the people around me were toxic. They keep complaining. They are forever unhappy about the unfair world and how the world has undermined their talent. Being surrounded by people like them, I was sort of drifted along with them, and unknowingly I became very negative as well, and I did not feel good. So one day I told myself that I could not go on like that anymore, and the first thing that I thought of was whether I should resign from the job. But it was a major decision because I really liked the job, so I approached my spiritual teacher at that time to ask him for his opinion. Now, the teacher's advice was unexpected, but it is something that I'll never forget. Instead of giving me a direct answer, he asked me to picture something. This is what he asked me to imagine. Suppose you have dropped a gold coin into a drain along a busy street. Now, the drain is filled with filthy garbage. It is smelly. But you will have to plunge your whole hand into the drain to retrieve the gold coin. What will you do? I thought for a while and said, well, I would use one hand to pinch my nose to ensure that I stop breathing so that the smell wouldn't affect me, and then use the other hand to dig through the garbage to retrieve the gold coin. You would not be afraid of the filthy garbage? My teacher asked me. No, if the gold coin is important to me. Would you be hearing the noise of the traffic or people talking? No. If my focus is on retrieving the gold coin, I wouldn't hear anything. Then my teacher said, you have got the answer. Well, indeed, I had my answer, and it was my aha moment. Now, the moral of the story is that when you have a big enough why, you can overcome any how. You have a big enough purpose, you'll be able to overcome any obstacles that you are facing. That gold coin was my goal, and I was determined to get it no matter what. And guess what? It worked. Now, when I used the tactic to deal with the toxic people in the office, all of a sudden the distractions vanished. Those toxic colleagues started to lose interest in me because I wasn't playing their negative game. It was like I had become immune to the poison. A year later, I left the company, not because of them, but because I was ready for a bigger challenge. Now, if you are surrounded by negative people, remember the story of the gold coin. Find your purpose, find your goal, and focus on retrieving it. You might be surprised how the noise of the toxic people fades into the background. It's time to reclaim energy and pursue your passions. So this is the first story. Now the next. This is probably a tougher one. It involves a close friend of mine whose wife, in my friend's word, was toxic. No matter what happened, she would pin the blame entirely on him. It was a constant barrage of criticism that wore him down. Imagine living under this kind of pressure. So he asked me what he should do, and wanted me to give him some advice as a friend. And the first question that I asked him was, "Do you love your wife?" And he said, "I do, and I don't want to lose her, so don't ask me to cut her off." But does it mean that I will have to put up with her behavior for the rest of my life? At that time, I had already been teaching Wu Wei and Flow, so I had some idea for him. So I asked him, imagine that your wife was suffering from a serious illness. Let's say it's a cancer. Will you give up on her? Of course not. Then what will you do? I will do what I can do to find a cure for her. And then I asked, what if her toxic behavior that you mentioned was the cancer? He thought a while and said, I will find a cure for her. Very good, I said. And the first thing you must be ready for is the fact that she will not become a new person overnight. Understand her problems, allow her a runway to change, and help her along the way. And in any case, your love for her is already the first dose of medicine. I'm glad to say that seeing the toxic behavior of his wife after cancer ignited my friend's desire to seek a solution for his wife. Not knowing that, it also gives him tremendous patience to allow the solution to work. With his effort, his wife's behavior improved significantly, and I must say that their relationship has become ever stronger after that, so much so that it has become an envy among us. Having said that, I must stress that the solutions I mentioned are situational. I'm not sharing with you technique, I'm sharing with you an attitude. The situation may warrant you to do some drastic thing. For example, you may have to really cut off from someone. But I'm also inviting you to give yourself an opportunity to see things differently, especially when it involves the people you love or the things you like. And I mentioned earlier that the approach is based on the 3 treasures of Lao Tzu. And here I would like to elaborate a bit more. What are Lao Tzu's 3 treasures? For those who read the Tao Te Ching, you can find them in chapter 67. But there are so many different translations, and in order not to confuse you, let me go back to the Chinese text. These are the 3 treasures. 1月慈, 2月俭, 3月不敢为天下先. Now I'll translate the 3 treasures as compassion, simplicity, and dare not to be ahead of the world. As you can see in the 2 examples, when you have compassion, it helps you to discover your purpose. It was the passion for the job and my friend's love for his wife that made a difference. And when you have a purpose, you will not squander your energy on things that don't matter. With the focus, the obstacles shrink in size. You can dwarf the difficulties you face and make them become easier to handle. So it is the 2nd treasure, simplicity. The first treasure, compassion, and the 2nd treasure, simplicity, when they add up, they give you patience. You accept rather than resist, and in the process, you extend your feelers to find a way to solve the problems rather than forcing a solution that comes straight out of your head. In other words, you go with the flow of nature rather than being ahead of the world. What do you think? I hope you'll find the 3 treasures helpful, and also the approach to solving problems with difficult or toxic people useful. Please let me know what you think in the comments below.